completed.
Whilst Lauda battles for his life, Ferrari are already looking for another driver.
So I was speaking with Ferrari all the time about the accident, and Ferrari said to me something, you know, Ferrari will live, with or without Nicky. You don't need to stay in the hospital, you know. We need you go back to the circuit and find another driver, because if Nicky will not drive, Ferrari will not stop.
Once he had been the protege of Enzo Ferrari. But for Enzo, giving up on the World Championship is not an option.
Press and the public like to concentrate on the driver as being the most important member of the team, but it's not at all. The drivers are very much replaceable. And the unfortunate idea of the two McLaren drivers being involved in a motorway accident together and dying, do you think that their team would be on the back row of the grid at the next race? No, they won't be, because they'll just hire two more hot shoes and they'll be right up there.
Hunt takes full advantage in the next two races, closing the gap to just 2 points.
And with Niki Lauda, his main opponent, likely to be in hospital for some time, his chances of winning the title are pretty good.
Lauda has second and third degree burns to his face and hands. Part of his scalp has been burnt away. He has lost half of one ear, and his lungs are barely working.
But I suddenly was aware of, through the accident, how quickly you can die. I remember my wife coming, and she burst in tears. So she was very much affected when she saw me there. And I thought, shit, you know, if she's crying, I must be in a bad stage. But in racing, the risk and taking chances was exactly the same as it was before, because this was part of the game.
Just 40 days after doctors had given up hope and a priest had knelt at his bedside, the Austrian ace climbed back into the cockpit of his glaring red Ferrari. His friends and colleagues claimed that his miracle recovery had more to do with his iron will than with master surgery.
With 5 races left and everything still to play for, Lauda is back.
When I came to the hospital, you know, you feel like kind of you feel like you are very tired, and you would like to go and sleep. But you know, it's not just going sleeping; it's something else. And then you just fight with the brain. You hear noises and you hear voices, and you just try to listen what they're saying, and you try to keep your brain working, and to get the body ready to fight against the illness. And I think this was very good that I did that, because in that way I survived.
Niki Lauda was recovering so fast that he proposed to Ferrari to race in Monza.
Ferrari said, no, don't, because if we lose the championship in the end of the year, it's better you don't start so early, because then we can say you had an accident. And this was exactly the opposite what I was thinking.
Glauben Sie selbst daran, dass Sie in Monza Weltmeisterschaftspunkte machen können?
Das ist schwer zu sagen, das kann man erst beurteilen nach dem Training, dass man sieht, wie weit im Training ich vorn liege oder hinten liege und wo der Hand liegt, und das kann man jetzt unmöglich sagen.
Was hätten Sie noch auf dem Herzen, was Sie gerne sagen wollten?
Nix, ich freue mich einfach wieder zu leben, und ich freue mich wieder in meinen Beruf einzusteigen und hoffe, genauso wie in der Vergangenheit, das Beste geben zu werden.
At Lauda's side is his wife, Marlene. She has been with him throughout his recovery, but Monza is the last place she wants him to be.
Haben Sie während der letzten 5 schweren Wochen irgendwann einmal die Idee gehabt, es wäre vielleicht besser, wenn Niki Lauda aufhört, oder haben Sie den Wunsch gehabt?
Nein, ich hab seine Krankheit, wenn man es Krankheit nennen kann, nicht ausgenützt. Zu sagen, Niki, jetzt musst du aufhören. Das wäre so falsch gewesen, weil ich wusste von vorne an, dass er es nicht machen würde.
Monza, Italy, home to Ferrari and their fans. After coming within seconds of being burnt to death, Lauda returns to a hero's welcome.
When we went to Monza, the focus was on Nicky, 110%. We took him inside the garage. He took out the balaclava, and it was really his face was a mask of blood, and they say, my God, how can he race?
It was pouring with rain on his return. This is the Nürburgring carrying on almost, the gloom of the Nürburgring.
Is there any psychological after effects from this accident for you at all?
No, I don't think so. Everything looks good.
Lauda prepares to go back on the track to race against the clock for his place on the starting grid.
The pressure was on the Ferrari called, should I race, should I not race? It was a huge pressure on me for that particular race.
The physical scars have begun to heal, but the mental ones run deeper.
I came to the circuit, wanted to drive out of the pits and couldn't drive. And I suddenly was hit by the whole 4 weeks accident problems, all these kind of things. And I just couldn't drive. So I did one slow lap, went back into the pits. I said I go back there and I drive for myself. And in the end of the day, I was quickest Ferrari and was right back like before.
Just before the race begins, Hunt's team, McLaren, are having problems of their own. Their fuel has been ruled to be illegal.
We were made to pump the fuel out of our cars, fill up with standard fuel at the racetrack, and start on the back of the grid. So we were shafted by the Italians. But this is very good. They're very good at this. So the Italian mafiosa managed to get us on the back row of the grid.
How will the feeling be fighting against Nicky again?
Hard work.
When he first met him, James said straight away, he said, Nicky, you're the only person I know who could be in a fire and come out better looking.
For Nicky, this race is life or death, I finish and I go in the points, or I lose the championship here in Monza.
Stuck at the back of the grid, Hunt makes a charge on the first lap. But as he tries to fight his way through, he almost immediately spins out of the race.
This partisan Italian crowd cheers for only two things today: a Ferrari passing a competitor, or their most serious challenger to the World Championship in trouble. Here it is, the latter.
Poor James, he didn't enjoy the walk back past the Italian fans. Well, actually, thinking about it, knowing James, he probably loved it.
Lauda's wife, Marlena, can only watch.
Incredibly, Nicky finished not only the race, but finished fourth. That was something incredible.
Hunt and McLaren jet off to prepare for the Canadian Grand Prix, but their troubles are far from over. In Paris, Ferrari presents its case for overturning McLaren's win at the British Grand Prix.
There were gentlemen in blazers wearing old-school ties who were meant to decide on matters of whether people should be disqualified, drivers should start or not start. None of them really seem to have read the rule book very clearly.
These three old boys turned up and were introduced to the saintly Nicky before they went in, which was all part of Ferrari's psychological warfare. So they all went in going, oh, we've touched the hand of Saint Nicky.
The verdict goes against McLaren, and 9 vital points are deducted.
So we didn't win the British Grand Prix, and there's no appeal to this appeal. That's it. That's the end of it.
With so many points lost and only 3 races to go, the odds are heavily against Hunt, and the strain is showing between him and Lauda.
Well, Alan, I hope that on the other end of this telephone we have James Hunt, who's a very long way away in Toronto. Hello, James. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Frank.
Now then, disappointed with this decision, but are you really surprised?
Yes, I was very surprised because of the, as far as the rules were concerned, there was no question. Ferrari had no case.
Well, in fact, we've just pulled off the tapes here in London as I've been talking to you, a quote from Niki Lauda. He has reacted to the news, quite understandably, by saying, I'm delighted, madly delighted. And he goes on to say that I am satisfied, not just because this will be good for me, but because at least a positive decision has been taken in the interests of the sport. Now, what do you say to that?
Well, it's the sort of rubbish you'd expect. The guy's, had a very bad accident. He's been very brave and done very well. But he'd do well to consider it as a sport.
I see. You are very critical about the way he behaves, are you?
Well, Nicky isn't a sportsman. Nicky's interested in only one thing, and that's Nicky.
No, I don't want to discuss if it was wrong or right, the decision. At least I expected of James to react in the same way, to respect me as a driver and fight if he wants against Ferrari.
I decided that we couldn't possibly win the World Championship from this position now without these points, and stopped trying to control James's excesses, which became quite excessive. Staying in a great big motel on the side of the freeway in Toronto, and there was a live band playing in the bar, and the lead singer was a bit like Stevie Nicks, blonde little dynamite creature. So James managed to pull her. We had to get up early in the morning to go out to the warm-up, and he came down, dishevelled with this lady, obviously hardly, anyway, dishevelled might be the best way of putting it. Staggered off to the racetrack, won the race.